Hey everyone, AMR back again with another YouTube video. So in this one, I'm going to be trying to do something a little bit different. I think I'm going to try on this channel to review some of the most renowned actors out there right now. And I think Tom Cruise would be a very good starting block for this. So the goal of this series is going to be looking back at a very established actor's career, figuring out which movies have aged super well, and then trying to rank them from 5 to 1. So they're actually going to be graded from least to most relevant in today's world. So in that regard, let's go ahead and jump into it. So as always, if you like today's content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Helps me out a ton on the channel, and it also lets me know if you like stuff like this in the future. So starting off here, we have Top Gun. So it was released in May 16, 1986. It is actually currently under a remake right now, where they are going to, I think, make a sequel. I don't think it's going to be a complete remake. But the main characters in it are Pete Maverick Mitchell, Tom Iceman Kazansky, and Charlotte Charlie Blackwood. So I recently just watched this movie for the first time, no less, and it is one of those like, holy cow, it'll knock your socks off type of a movie. The plot line is basically there's a bunch of students in this Naval Academy fighter pilot school, and it's the best of the best. They're fighting for, quite literally, Top Gun. And so Iceman, played by Val Kilmer, is the direct competitor of Tom Cruise's character Maverick. There's a couple of things that happen in the movie that really kind of play into like, holy cow, there's a lot of drama going on. One of which is the, established romance between Maverick and Charlie. Charlie is the direct superior. She is the teacher to the naval students, talking about these different types of fighter pilots that they'll go out and face in the real world. And it isn't until after Tom Cruise goes ahead and embarrasses himself in the bar that he finds out that, oh, that's actually my teacher. But despite all that, there actually is quite the established love romance between the two. So the movie is about an hour and 50 minutes long. By no means did the movie feel like it was dragging on. And I thought that they filled in a lot of those gaps with like character development. There was a very crucial part of the movie, which I will save. I don't want to spoil too much in this, that like really kind of had like that turning point in the movie where you're like, okay, I thought I knew how this movie was going to end, but now I have really no idea. Fantastic movie. It's worth every minute that you invest into it. I think that it is going to be the least relevant in comparison to the other movies. It is still a very relevant movie, like plot line in today's world. It's just in comparison to the other ones, I just thought that it fit as dead last. So popping over here to our second movie, we have Days of Thunder. So Days of Thunder came out in June 27th, 1990. So this movie is all about racing, NASCAR type racing. So one of the biggest things that happens in the movie is there is a devastating car crash that happens. I'm not going to talk about who's involved in the car crash, what happens in it. Go ahead and watch it. It's worth investing your time. Days of Thunder was one of those movies. I personally am not really an avid NASCAR watcher. I think that most times, like whenever these racing movies come out, the only ones that I've really actually invested time in would be like Fast and Furious. But Days of Thunder was like one of those movies that hooked me instantly. It's got a very strong cast, as you can see: Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, Robert Duvall, and Michael Rooker. Like these guys kill their role in this movie. So the main character is Cole Trickle and Dr. Claire Lewicki. So Claire Lewicki is played by Nicole Kidman, and I think this is the movie, if I'm not mistaken, where Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman actually established their in real life relationship. So I think it was after this movie that they actually became a known couple in like pop culture. And Robert Duvall was playing such a really good role after coming out of like the movies like The Godfather and stuff like that. He ends up playing this like almost, I don't know how to describe it. He's almost like a rundown seasoned vet in the NASCAR industry, and Tom Cruise is being this like know-it-all hotshot who thinks he can do anything and is invincible. It's a really good movie. It's for people who really like to have like a nice blend between romance, drama, and like the thrill of, like, it's a very loud movie, similar to like the Top Gun movie. Days of Thunder is about NASCAR, so it's got like those high engine, it's got those scenes that you want to see, and there is plenty of storyline to go around in this one. So next up on our list here, we have Jerry Maguire. So this shouldn't be a shock to many people that like what this movie is, but it was released on December 13th, 1996. It has the star cast of Tom Cruise, Cuba Gooding Jr., and Renee Zellweger. They absolutely destroyed in this movie. So the plot line is about this heavy-hitting sports agent who's trying to land one of the like most elite of the elite, like lottery pick draft NFL quarterbacks, played by Jeremiah O'Connell. So for those of you that don't know, he was the like heavy-set kid in Stand By Me. And dude, it is one of those movies where like I think it's still relevant, especially with like with the NFL draft coming up right now. They just had the NFL Combine. This is a very relevant type of a movie, and it continues to be one. Like the amount of sports agents that are out there that are just trying to turn over, especially with this NFL offseason, there has been so much moving around, and the main goal for most of these sports agents is to just like get as many clientele as they can. Don't really care about establishing relationships with them, but just seeing them as as a compensation. Like they're just trying to get that incentive bonus by hiring on that big heavy hitting client. And so what ends up happening is that Tom Cruise gets himself into a little bit of a pickle where he ends up putting a lot of his eggs in one basket. I'm not going to tell you whether or not that works out for him or not, but it is definitely one of those movies where I'm like an avid sport nut, and I don't really care for dramas or romances, and this had like the perfect blend in my opinion. There was plenty of times where they focused on the athletics component of the movie, which I think is a crucial part of this, as well as like taking a step back, realizing like, okay, there's more to life than just being this like workaholic guy who's trying to make a name for himself in the sports industry. I think it's super relevant in today's world, and that's why I'm putting it at number 3 on my list. So next up here, we have one of my favorite movies of all time. It is called A Few Good Men. This movie came out in December 11th, 1992. I feel like this is one of those movies that you could watch it 100 times and it gets better and better every single time that you watch it. I think that this is one of the more relevant movies because this is like a constant struggle in the military. It's about what can and can't people get away with when it comes to discipline. Like that is one thing that the military is very, very good at. It's like instilling those disciplines in their workers and making sure that everyone is on the same page. But sometimes it gets taken too far. And it's played with Tom Cruise, Demi Moore, and Jack Nicholson. So this is the movie where, in case you didn't know, that famous quote, "You can't handle the truth." That is where this movie came from. Or that is where the quote came from. And the main characters are Lieutenant Daniel Caffey, Lieutenant Joanne Galloway, and Colonel Nathan R. Jessup. So this has a little bit more of a profane type of a take on how the military is supposed to be perceived. A lot of the times they try to sugarcoat the language that happens in Hollywood on these military movies. And I think Jack Nicholson kind of threw that aside and was that hard knocks type of a colonel. His whole thing is to be like this hard-nosed guy who is defending the borders at Guantanamo. And so the main plot line here is that something happens to one of their private recruits. He ends up passing away on unforeseen circumstances that kind of get into this situation where we don't really know if people were in the wrong or if it was because they were ordered to do something. There's a lot of drama going on in this one. There's a lot of moving pieces, and there's no gore. So if you're into like movies that are like highly like shooting and killing and stuff, this is not your movie. Like this is pretty much primarily based on figuring out what the right solution is in academia. Like they are trying to pick apart a court case, figure out which parts of the law that they can manipulate and try and use that to their advantage. Fantastic cast, fantastic movie. It is 218 minutes, a little bit longer than the other ones on this list, but I mean, this is one of those things that's probably just never going to go away. It's going to continue to be relevant, and that's why it's number 2 on my list. Okay, so this one is probably going to surprise a lot of people, but I think that the most relevant movie that Tom Cruise has ever made has to be Minority Report. So, Minority Report came out on June 21, 2002. Its main characters are Chief John Anderton, Danny Whitwer, director Lamar Burgess, and Agatha. So Agatha is the girl that you see in the bottom left. She is one of the 3 triplets, and she is the one that, like, she's basically the straw that stirs the drink. Without her, the other 2 twins can't really foresee the future. But essentially what the plot line of this movie is trying to do pre-crime. Yes, you heard that correctly. They're trying to predict crime that will happen in the future and stop it before the crime actually takes place. There's a lot of moving pieces here, you know, like, is pre-crime something that you can actually enact in law? Because if someone hasn't actually gone through with the action, have they actually committed the crime yet? And so there's a lot of moving pieces here. And what ends up happening is Tom Cruise catches on to a kink in the system, and the system tries to crumble down on top of him and falsely accuse him of something. And so the whole movie is about him trying to right the ship and, you know, make sure that the top level executive, who is played by Max von Sydow, he has a British accent. He's a tall British gentleman who is like the highest of the high. He's actually the person who founded pre-crime, and his main prerogative is to make sure that pre-crime goes national. Right now it's just like, I think it's only like district, and John Anderton's supposed to be like this head executive type guy who is out in the field, and he is the best at actually going into the he's actually one of the best agents that goes out there into the field and then stops these crimes from happening. So it's futuristic, but yet it's not. It was made in 2002, so give it a little bit of slack when it comes to trying to figure out where it thought that the future would be. But I'll tell you what, when this movie was made in 2002, the CGI is phenomenal. The storyline is phenomenal. The amount of discretionary stuff that happens about whether or not that pre-crime is something that can be enforced or shouldn't be enforced is absolutely like mind-boggling. I think that this movie is going to go down as one of Tom Cruise's best movies of all time, and not a lot of people know about it. You know, it's on Netflix right now, so if you want, you can go ahead and check it out. But it's 2.5 hours long. Its genre is action, crime, and mystery. And as I alluded to in the beginning, it is all about pre-crime, landing number 1 on this list. But that's going to do it for today's video. As always, if you like today's content, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what movies you thought that I missed, or if you think the order was just wrong all out in general. But I'll catch you in the next one. See you!